Welcome back everybody to DJ Tutorials. This is the third and final part to creating the Master Sword. If you haven't done parts 1 and 2, please go back and do those. Let's get started. Alright everybody, we are now ready to start putting materials onto our sword. So before we start doing that, let's go up here, change this to blade, change this here to handle. We're going to change this to hilt. And we're going to change this to gem. And let's take all of these items and we're going to move it with M to a new collection. We're going to call this Master Sword. Not Srod, Sword. Okay, so we're going to be using Eevee for this. I prefer cycles, but you know, a lot of people don't have the type of GPU that I have, so we're going to keep it nice and light for anybody to use a more simple rendering engine so it doesn't use that much of our GPU and CPU and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to change this name of the material here. We're going to call this handle maybe, or you can call this purple. We can call this purple metal. And the reason why I'm calling it that is I'm going to go over here and I'm actually going to choose our image, our reference image. And if you don't have it there, you can go here and open up anything you have and just use that. If you have some sort of set of colors or a palette or something like that that you prefer to use, you can do that too. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to use this to pull our basic color information. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to grab a middle of the road sort of thing, turn the roughness down a bit, metallic up, and you can see we already have a purple metal going on here. And we are going to press Control T. This, I think, is just standard now that it has the Node Wrangler. If it's not, go up into your Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and add the Node Wrangler add-on. And that's going to add this little tree for you, this little node structure when you want to add a new image texture. And we're going to change this to Object. And we're going to change this to box, and we're not going to touch the blend right now. But if we go in here, we are going to open up some maps, which I actually have this. It is part of the AMD materials package that you download from their website. You can go and you can get that. I can put a link down in the video description for this, but this is also provided in my Blender file that you can download from Gumroad if you'd like to use that. Basically, all this is a basic scratches material or map. It's just a black and white image. If I look through this with the viewer, you can see it's just a black and white image with these on here. And we are going to add, Shift A to add a input value, and we're going to put that right where the scale is. And this allows us to scale up that texture as much as we'd like. And we're going to make these scratches fairly small, maybe something like that for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to now look at this through the principled BSDF. We're going to take this color and we're going to actually put that through the roughness. And we're going to take this where it says color space, sRGB, and we're going to change this to non-color. That's going to make the black and white a lot more sharp in regards to what those colors are being picked out and stuff like that. It just makes it a lot easier when you're trying to do stuff like this with a color ramp. And we're going to swap these actually. We're going to move these around like this. So black will be on the right and the white will be on the left. And you can change the way that those scratches look by doing that there. And you can see it looks kind of neat. And what I'm going to also do with this map is I am going to add a vector, a bump, and we're going to take this color here, we're going to pipe it into the height, we're going to put this into the normal. You can see it gets a little bit crazy here, so we're going to take the strength down. We're going to take the distance down to like a 0.1 or maybe a 0.01, just so it's sort of on the surface, and take this. One thing to recognize when it comes to anything in Eevee, bump maps and vector maps and or normal maps and stuff like this always kind of look a little bit more extreme, a little bit more shiny and stuff like that. So you sort of have to keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff. But basically that is the material that we're sort of going for. You can make this a lot smaller if you'd like, maybe put a 3 in here to make it a lot smaller, and then change the strength here to maybe a 0.015 or something like that. And we can take this and we can make this a little bit more like this. Maybe it's more aged or something, so we can make the more shiny bits, the darker bits, a little bit less shiny. And we can pull these over, or you can pull this over if you'd like to make the scratches a little bit more like this. We can also look through here and see where those scratches are, and then look back through the BSDF node at the end over here and just take a quick sort of gander at it. It looks all right. So now what we could do here is we could take this and we can shift select this one, make sure that this one is outlined in this orange color here. Control L, link materials, and now both materials or both objects have that same material on it. And if you feel like this is kind of weird that it's running across or something like that, you can take the rotation here and you can move this rotation. See that? And you can like sort of make it a little bit wacky. You can do all sorts of different stuff with this. You can actually use this and mix it with a whole bunch of other stuff. That would definitely make this look a lot better. But since this is a fairly beginner type of thing, we're just going to leave it as this for right now because it's good enough. Okay. Now for this is the purple metal. This one's more of a gold metal, right? So you can press new if you like, but what we're going to do is we're going to actually use this purple material and we are going to duplicate this by pressing this right here, new material. We're going to call this gold metal. And we are going to take this, we're going to use the eyedropper, and we're going to choose this more goldish color here. And there it is. It's just been copied over. I'm actually going to take this and make this a lot smaller. Maybe something like that. And there we go. It's a little bit too obvious. Maybe I want to take this down to a 0.005 or something. Make the distance maybe a 0.0025 or something to it slightly there. See that? It's just sort of slightly there. Okay. And we can call that good. Now you are more than welcome to change up some of this stuff, make a different material, change the shape of this if you like, if you want to kind of squash this down because maybe the, design of it at the top here is a little bit funky and you want to just like pull that down a little bit and flatten it out. You can do whatever you want. Honestly, you really can. But let's move on to this one here because this is going to be a little bit harder to do. First, we're going to start off with adding the sword, or actually, let's just call this blade. We'll call this blade material, okay? And we're not going to use this one as a starting point because this is a little bit different. This is like steel, right? This has been, hammered out. Some blacksmith's been really working on it for a long time. We are going to make the roughness nothing. We're going to put the metallic up. And look, it's done. Well, not really, right? Because it's kind of boring if you just have a full-on 100% shiny blade, okay? Because real steel has little striations in it. It's like there's these little lines that sort of cut all the way across. And there's a lot of ways you could do this, but I'm going to show you the way that I like to do this because I think it works out pretty darn well. You can take an image and you can stretch it out on the scale right here. You can like take something that has like little dots, black and white, and stretch it way out. You can use some of the textures here, the procedural textures, to do that kind of thing. But I like to use the easy methods to do some of this stuff. And what I found to be the easiest is, let's see, where is it? Wood. That's not what I'm looking for. Let's look around here. And in the maps that I have a more sort of like easy way of handling this. I just got to look for the right one. You can use something like this here. You can see there's this this horizontal black and white quality that looks like a bunch of lines. But I'm going to use this one right here that says oak tile bump. I'm just going to use that for this particular situation. And the reason why I like to use a wood texture is because I feel that it actually works pretty darn well for the kind of thing that we're doing. So instead of UV project, we're going to do object. And you can see there that it's when it's pulled across, do you see those lines? It's very distinct. And what we can do here is we can add, you can scale this, right? You can scale this along this axis here. You see that? It's made the lines a lot tighter. So if I pull that out, you can see that there. And if I pull that to the right, you can see how much more is being added there, okay? And then if we do this on the Y, you can see that it's adding some different variants there. I'm going to pull that back because it's a little bit too much. Maybe something like this here will work out just fine. Change the color space here to non-color. And we are going to add a vector bump. Take the color, put it into the height, take the normal, put it into the normal here for the principled BSDF. And look at that, it looks perfect, right? Of course not, because we have to pull all this stuff down, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And as we pull that stuff down, you can see that it now creates this sort of like very, very slight difference in the texture on the surface of our object here. And you can take that, you can put that through a converter, color ramp, and sometimes this gets a little bit tight in here where it tries to automatically connect some things. So let's put it right in the middle, put the color here, put the roughness there. And we're not going to use straight up black and white. We're going to take this, we're going to pull this down a little bit like that maybe, and then look through here. Let's pull this over and let's just sort of shape this out the way that we want it to be. I'm just going to add a little bit of change in the roughness just for this particular type of material. And now we have something that has this little effect that looks kind of neat, right? You have these lines that go all the way across, more like how steel is formed and how it really looks on a blade. So it's a fun little addition that I like to do. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the etching that is going to go right here, and we're going to handle that next. All right, so the next part that we are going to take a crack at is adding this right here. Now, for those of you who have never done this type of thing before, I'm sure this could be a little bit daunting. You're not really sure how to start. I'm going to show you a basic way that you can add this to whatever your objects require when it comes to this type of little etching. So in order to handle a etching like this in a very simple way, what you need to do is you need to have a image that you're going to project. And what I did was I went into Inkscape, which is a free software. You can download it. I'll put a link to that particular software in the video description. And I basically made this shape here, the icon, the etching that's in there. And I took that and I brought it into GIMP and I added a blur around the entire thing, because what we're going to use is a vector normal map. We're going to basically take this and use it as a normal map to add a projected effect. It will make it look like it's been carved into the sword, but it won't have been carved into the sword, if that makes any sense. And how we're going to do that is we are going to be using a UV projection, okay? So in order for us to do this, we are going to need a texture, image texture. And we're going to need something like this. You can see there's the original, and here is with the blur. And I used a PNG. You could use a JPEG. PNG has a really good, clear alpha channel that you can use. So I'm going to open that image. And if we just look at this through here, and we go to the material preview, you can see that it's sort of over there because it's automatically going to use the UV unwrap projection. But we're not going to use a like UV projection and all that kind of stuff because we have a whole bunch of these modifiers over here. And I don't want to do destructive modeling. I don't want to apply all this stuff because I really like to be able to edit and adjust as needed. Let's just say, even though we're doing this for fun, let's just say that I had a client that wanted to have some adjustments or something, and I would much rather go back to a mirrored subdivision version rather than applying all of those modifiers, right? So what we are going to do is we're going to do something a little bit different. So if I click this, Control T, I'm going to take this to generated, okay? And you can see that it's a little bit crazy. It's got all this stuff going on. But we're going to change this here from flat repeat to flat clip. So now only that image is visible. You see that? It's only there. And what we have to do is we have to play around with some of this stuff here. The scale and the location is really kind of funky. So if we move this on the X, you can see it's moving around. If we move it on the Y, you can see it's moving around. If we move it on Z, nothing really happens, okay? So X and Y for location. Rotation we really don't need because it's straight up and down. But scale we want to sort of play with. See that? It stretches it across. Y, if we move this to the right, look at that. You see that we're changing the size of that. We're kind of normalizing that a little bit, okay? So we can take that, we can sort of squash it down a bit, and then we can change the location to be a little bit more accurate with where we want this thing placed. We can move it right up into here because it's supposed to go kind of across here, I think. If we go to wireframe, we can sort of see it there, go to the material preview, and there it is. So we can sort of move this around, change this. We don't want it to be too warped and too weird. We want it to be a little bit more normalized in the sort of like size and shape and all that kind of stuff and where it's located. So we can move that around. And we're basically just moving this around and placing this where we think it's going to work the best. And again, this sort of, I think, changes on a lot of the incarnations or iterations of this particular sword. So if anyone's going to be overly like critical, you could just tell them like not to, I guess, be overly critical about this type of thing, because it really doesn't matter. Now, the next thing we're going to do is that this alpha channel, we need to put this into our bump here, but we have another thing that's going into our bump node, right? So what we need to do is we need to sort of take this and we need to mix that with the other image in order for both of them to be available. So we could just add this to a displacement and all this other stuff, but really, again, I'm trying to teach people stuff here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add a color, mix color, put that right between the two here. And we're going to take this alpha channel and we're going to move this over here. And with the mix, you can see there, I put that into the factor, and this bottom one here, I can change the color. Do you see that? Black, white. Pretty cool, right? So I could take that, and we can keep that going right into that bump node there, and look through the principled BSDF. And what do we find? Check it out. There is a little bit of an etching there. We can move this color down or move it up, and you can see that it's changing how that looks, okay? And more than that, what we kind of want to do is we kind of want to put that into our base color, because the base color is going to also make it look like there's a little bit of an etching in there, right? So we can take that, we can move that like this, and there you have it. We have that sort of etched in there. You can change the strength here. You can move the strength up a bit. And if you don't like that the lines are becoming more pronounced, what can you do? Well, we can take a converter, color ramp, put that right between the two here, and you can adjust. So we could take this black and we can move this up. You can see it gets rid of the lines. If we look really, really closely here, take the black, move it down. You see that? Move it up. And now we can control those lines and how powerful those lines show up. Okay, so you get all of the control you could possibly need, and we can take this and we can move that color down a little bit more. And now it looks like there's a really cool little etching in there. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you guys how to also make this thing glow. So if we take this and we say, you know what, this is cool, but what about if this thing is like powered up, right? We can take a shader, we take add shader, we could put it right here, take this, put it through there, and then we can add a shader, add a emission shader like this, and what can we do? We could put that right in there, and we could take the alpha channel and put it through the color, and you can control the strength like this. Or what you could do is you could go to color. We can go to mix, put that in here. And now watch this. You see where there's black, right? For A, white is that icon, the logo or etching that's in there. And you can take the strength and move it up. And from here, we can actually change the color. See that? So you can change the color to all these different ones here. And then later when you add a glow filter over the top, you can have a really, really, really cool little glow effect for that little symbol. All right. So that is basically how you do that. Now, if you want to pose this and all that kind of stuff, you're going to run into a little bit of an issue because everything here is being done with non-destructive modeling, and you might find it difficult to move these all around independently. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a little control for this bad boy, okay? We're going to add a mesh, add a cube. We're going to, in edit mode, we're going to move this around, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to make a bounding box, all right? We're going to make a little bounding box for our sword, and the box is going to control the actual orientation, rotation, all that kind of stuff, because we're going to parent all of our objects here to this box. And we're going to call this, we could call this sword control if you want. You can call it kind of whatever you want. but I'm going to call it sword control because that's what I want to do. I'm going to move that into master sword there. And you don't want to necessarily scale it outside. You saw how I did in edit mode. I moved this all. If you did scale it outside, just Control A scale to apply that scale because you don't want anything funky happening to the rest of your objects. And all of these should have a 1-to-1 scale. If you look through here, everything should have a 1 scale. You shouldn't see a whole bunch of other stuff. If you do see a bunch of other stuff, apply the scale, and you might have to change some of your bevel weights and stuff like that over there in your modifiers, so just check for that. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go down to constraints, and we are going to make this a child of the box here, okay, the sword control. So you can see sword control there. We're going to add child of. You can do it from the tree up here, sword control. Take the handle, sword control, and then the gem. We are going to make that a child of the sword control. So then basically what you do is you move this around and you can control everything based on that. You don't have to worry about a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So you can rotate it, you can grab it and move it around. And when you go to render it, what you'll need to do is make sure that you set certain parameters. So the visibility here, you're not going to want to have this visible in the camera. Okay, you don't want the ray visibility, you don't want the shadow, you don't want any of that stuff. And when you go into cycles, you're going to have to change this as well. Now you can make this so that in the viewport display, you go down here, it says display as textured, display as wire. Okay, display as wire. Because the wire is going to basically just be a wireframe. It's going to be like an empty outside, but you don't have to worry about some of the weird stuff that happens with empties when you try and use them as object controls, like how I'm trying to do it. Okay, so I'm also going to get rid of this shadow here. Now, one thing that I will help you with when you're trying to visualize this and you go to the material preview and you see like the reflections are there and it looks really cool and stuff, but when you go to rendered, you don't have a lighting setup, so you're not really sure how it's going to look. You can go up here, change this, deselect scene lights and scene world, and then you're going to have an HDRI that is present in that rendered view, and you can actually change it by going here and changing it to these different ones, okay? I'm not going to show you how to do a full-on render or the render that I did here that you're seeing on your screen. You can basically use other tutorials that I have from my channel or online to get your render and get this thing oriented how you want it to be. I'd love to see your work. Please shout me out on Twitter or on Instagram or any of that stuff. I have all that on my channel info, so you can tag me in any of your posts. I'd love to see how yours ended up. Thank you so much to all of my subscribers and all of the people who have been donating via my Patreon this whole time. I know it's been a long year, a lot of reasons why I haven't posted it very recently, a lot of reasons why I haven't posted very often in the last year, but I am certainly grateful for all the people who are giving me donations and all that. Be prepared for a lot more videos to come out similar to this. Next time we will be doing the Hyrulean Shield, so be prepared for that when it comes out. Thank you so much for following, and please hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I will see you all next time on DJ Tutorials.